Just let me know if the additional, and I have an additional light here, if that's necessary or not. I'm going to turn it off.
I think you look good.
And I can turn it back on. What do you prefer? Light?
Yeah, with light. Sounds good. Okay. So hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, friends of SRS. Hi. As we have just begun, so maybe we can just give 5 minutes for the latecomers to slowly join us. So at the meantime, maybe we can direct our attention to this chat group. Okay, this group chat that Ryan has posted. Ryan is our technical support for this afternoon. So he has actually posted some ground rules for us to, observe to kind of have a smooth and enjoyable event. So if I can direct your attention to that chat group, maybe we can take this time to slowly read through it. We will start in about 5 minutes time to let the latecomers join in. Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hello. So we are just waiting about 5 minutes to let all the latecomers slowly join in. So in the meantime, can I direct your attention to this chat group that we have in this Zoom meeting so that we can actually read through the ground rules that Ryan has posted so that we can all have a smooth sailing and enjoyable event for this afternoon. Okay, thank you all so much for joining us once again. So we will just be waiting for about 5 minutes before we begin officially. So thank you so much. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, my name is Yan Deng, and thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. I think we can begin because I think, yeah, we can start and we can slowly move along. Okay, so once again, good afternoon, everybody. Okay, my name is Yan Deng, a clinical executive of Silver Ribbon Singapore, and I will be your moderator for today. Okay, firstly, I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining us this afternoon to get up close and personal with our very, very special guest tonight. This afternoon, sorry. So before we begin, okay, I would like to direct everyone's attention once again to the chat box, okay, the chat group, where we have posted some ground rules for us to observe in order to enjoy a smooth running and enjoyable event. Okay, so we seek your kind cooperation for that. Okay, so before we begin, please allow me to share with all of you who we are. Okay, so I'm from Silver Ribbon Singapore, okay, and we were launched on the 4th of February 2006 by our late president, S.R. Nathan. Our mission is to promote positivity towards mental health issues and to combat mental health stigma through raising awareness and through education. So aside from providing complimentary online emotional support, we often hold events related to mental health to reach out to the public, much like this event that all of you are in right now. Okay, so without further ado, okay, can we welcome our very, very special guest speaker for today, the founder and president of ASHA International, Ms Gayathri. Hi, Ms Gayathri. Thank you so much for joining us today. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that warm welcome. I am delighted to be here with all of you. Well, as you introduced me, I am the founder and president of ASHA International. It's a nonprofit organization here in Portland, Oregon, on the west coast of the United States of America. And our mission is to normalize conversations about mental health and inspire hope and healing, one story at a time. When I started ASHA International, I started with a simple wish to share my story, to give hope to just one person struggling with a mental health condition. Today, we've reached more than 60,000 people through our programs and publications right here in the US and around the world. And Singapore was one of my most favorite countries to visit. And it was such a joy getting to know Persia and the community in Singapore, and especially the amazing mental health advocates. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms Gayathri. So to all our audience here, Ms Gayathri loves interacting with the audience. So if any of you have any questions at any point of time, please feel free to send in your questions and we will get to, we can ask Ms Gayathri some of your questions and she can get back to all of you. Okay, so I understand just now that you mentioned, ASHA International promotes wellness through the power of stories. So maybe to start things off, can we invite you to share with us your story and your journey?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Bangalore, India, and I'm sure many of you are aware of the city Bangalore in the south of India. And, it was a wonderful childhood. I grew up in an extended family of 23 people, uncles, aunts, grandparents, cousins, and it was a beautiful childhood. But by the time I became an adolescent, my life, began to be troubled. But let me just take you back to when I was 18 years old. I was so excited that I was going to bring my dad's dream of becoming a doctor come true. I had excelled at school since I was in kindergarten, and I was very, very confident that I would make my daddy's dream of becoming a doctor come true. He hadn't had the opportunity, and I believed I would make it come true. And you can imagine my horror when I went to check my results after the finals in my second year PUC, and I found out that I had failed. And I just couldn't comprehend how I could have excelled in school all along and suddenly failed. And I remember staring at the bulletin board, and my heart started to pound and my thoughts began to race, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think straight. I became very dizzy and disoriented, and I literally thought I was going to die. I thought I was having a heart attack. But now I know that was the beginning of my struggles with panic attacks. And so, I ran home to my mother and told her what had happened, and she couldn't believe it either. And so she, tried to comfort me and say, we're going to go back to college and talk to your principal and see what happened. Long story short, there was a boy in my class. He wanted me to be his girlfriend, and I had no interest at all. And so all year long, he threatened me that he was going to make me sorry. And so he basically had bribed the registrar and made me fail. And he was gloating about it all over college. And when I went back to college, he started to threaten to rape me. Now, as an 18-year-old girl growing up in a culture like India, I absolutely, or anywhere in the world for that matter, really, I had no way to cope with what was happening to me and no understanding of what was happening to me. Initially, my parents tried to comfort me, and when, I couldn't eat or I couldn't sleep, I couldn't function, and I soon began to withdraw and started experiencing what I now know as classic symptoms of depression. Only back then, I had no understanding, my parents had no understanding, and my doctors, my family physicians had no understanding, right? And so over the next 10 years, my life just became a blur of doctor visits, medications, psychotherapy, electroconvulsive therapy, hospitalizations, and failed suicide attempts. And throughout it all, the stigma and shame that surrounds mental illness choked me in its grip, not just me, but my family as well. So, eventually I got married, I had moved to the US, had my first baby, postpartum depression, throughout, all of these traumas after traumas after traumas, and still no understanding. And even after I got a diagnosis, there was the stigma that, really entangled me in such a place of darkness that I began to live like a prisoner in my own home. And I got pregnant again with my second child and had no understanding of the correlation between depression and suicidal ideation and pregnancy, cycles and hormonal cycles and all of that. And so I had to learn the really hard way after yet another failed suicide attempt. Finally, I came to a place of understanding that I was sick and I needed help. And it didn't matter what my family thought. It didn't matter what I thought, that I needed to get help or that I might not survive. And I remember going to my therapist's office and her encouraging me to go to the hospital and convincing me that they were not going to lock me up, because that was my biggest fear. That if I chose to get to a mental hospital, that they were going to lock me up, because that's what I'd seen. That's, in the media, that's what I'd read in the magazines. And so I didn't want to, get locked up. Of course, who would want that, right? So she convinced me that no, because I was voluntarily checking in, that I was not going to get confined in the seclusion room. But unfortunately, I did. I got confined twice within 10 days, and I also lost the pregnancy in between. And as you can imagine, it was the most traumatic experience of my life. And yet it was life transforming, because it is there in the hospital that I first started to meet people like myself, the so-called crazy people in the world, only they weren't crazy at all. They were amazing human beings, just struggling, like human beings do, with pain, with loss, with trauma, with grief. And I also met amazing healthcare professionals. Most of all, I met a stranger who came to visit me at the hospital. Her name was Aida. Aida was my husband's boss's mother-in-law's friend. She was visiting, my husband's boss from Los Angeles, and had overheard about my struggles and my suicidal ideation and the hospitalization, and had insisted to come to see me. Initially, I was so ashamed that I didn't want to see her, because who wants to have a guest in a psych ward, But finally, it's my Indian upbringing. We're always raised to believe that guests are our God. So I couldn't be disrespectful to her. So I decided I would, see her. And I'm so glad I did, because in the, maybe 10, 15 minutes that Aida held me in her arms and shared her own struggles with depression and her relentless pursuit of recovery, she gave me the gift of hope. Hope that I wasn't alone. Hope that I wasn't crazy. Hope that I could get better just as she had. And for the first time in my life, I began to believe that perhaps like Aida, I could recover and rebuild my life again. I will never forget Aida or the gift of hope that she gave me, because it changed my life forever. And it taught me the power of stories to give hope and change lives. It took me a long time. First of all, I have to tell you that all Aida wanted me that day was to promise her that I wouldn't kill myself. She told me that, yes, I would go through difficult times, but I should never give up, that I had the strength within me. I had to believe in myself and the strength within me to overcome this disease and to build a beautiful life for myself. And I remember promising her that I wouldn't kill myself, that I would try my hardest. And I'm glad I did, because over the last almost 3 decades, yes, there are ups and downs of life that all of us go through, but I've also had recurrent bouts of depression and suicidal ideation. But the hope that Aida gave me has inspired me over and over again to choose life, to believe in the power within myself, to rise again from regardless how dark a hole that I might have found myself in. So it is during that hospitalization that I promised that for every day that I had lived in despair, I would bring hope to the lives of others like myself. And it's really the gift of hope that Aida gave me that gave me the strength and the inspiration to start ASHA International, almost 17 years from the day that I had met her in the hospital. And so ASHA International is an opportunity for all of us within the organization to pay Aida's gift of hope forward. ASHA literally means hope in Sanskrit, one of the most ancient languages that originated in my home country of India, and also in Hindi, India's national language. And in English, it's an acronym for a source of hope for all. And at ASHA International, that is what we do. we give hope to people in all that we do.
Wow, thank you so much for such a one inspiring sharing. I think your story is, I understand it's filled with a lot of trauma in the past, but as a result, you managed to find hope, and I find that is really inspiring. Yeah, so I'd just like to ask you some questions if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so I was actually curious because I understand that stigma is quite strong, especially back in India. So how did your family first react when they found out that you were diagnosed with depression?
Yeah, I still remember on my very first visit back home to India after I'd moved to the US and had my first daughter. They were so excited to, for me to go back home, and especially the first grandchild, right? But they had no idea of what I had been struggling. I'd never told them about my postpartum depression because I didn't know what it was. All I knew is that I was struggling. So, but within 2 weeks of landing in India, I had lost about 15 pounds, and I was very, very suicidally depressed. And I remember my parents just completely lost and taking me back to the same doctor that had not diagnosed me when I was 18 and had just told them that I was just being a difficult teenager. Only this time, he told my mother, "You've got to rush her to a psychiatrist right now. We don't have any time to waste." And so my mother took me to the psychiatrist in Bangalore. And I remember sitting with her in the psychiatrist's office, and my mother was draping her sari over her head and just whispering into my ears, "Gayu, if anybody sees us here, our lives are over." And that's the power of stigma. See, if I had cancer and my mother needed to take me to a doctor's clinic, she would not have whispered those words. Back then, I had such rage and hatred towards my mother. How could she be so cruel, is what I thought back then. But now I understand. She loved me, she loves me, she will forever love me. But that is the power of stigma, where it fills people with so much fear that they can't have love, or at least show love and compassion. Because my mother at that point was terrified of what would happen to my future, my husband's future, his career, my daughter's future, who would marry my brother, who would marry my sister, what would happen to our family's reputation in the community, right? These are all fears and concerns all of us all over the world share when it comes to matters of mental illness. And that's exactly why you and I are having this conversation. So, at least starting today, we can see and believe and understand that mental illness and mental wellness is part of being human. There ought not to be any shame. There definitely does not need to be any stigma about something that is such a part of being human.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that because, yeah, I mean, I have witnessed firsthand how stigma actually kind of affects not just the person who is struggling with mental health issues, but also their family members. Yeah, and as a
Yes.
result, because of this stigma, it could actually affect the journey of recovery of the person who is actually struggling with the mental health issue. Yeah, so I would just like to ask you, like, so how do
I
you
just
actually
want to
address
add,
this?
I just want to quickly add, you're absolutely right. My husband lived like a prisoner in our home. I lived like a prisoner. And this is here in the US, okay? You would think that there isn't any stigma and one could easily access help. But that's the thing about culture and even across cultures. No matter where you are in the world, there's still a lot of stigma around mental illness, which is why we're having this conversation. So even here in the United States, this is where I lived. This is where I had access to the best healthcare professionals. And I was very fortunate that I could afford to go see any psychiatrist and therapist and get all the medications that I needed. But still, we didn't tell a single friend about what we were going through. And that alone, I always, believe that the stigma about, surrounding mental illness is more lethal than the illness itself, because we as a humanity, we're social beings. We live and thrive only within connection, social connectedness, families, friends, communities. Our connections is what keeps us alive and healthy. And so when you feel such fear and shame and start isolating yourselves, or at least pretending to be okay in the outside world, but then you're so sick and struggling on the inside that you can barely function, you can't. Nobody can, nobody, not the person that's struggling with a mental illness or the entire family. It affects all of us. So we've all got to stand up and speak out.
Yeah, and I agree with you because, like you mentioned, we need to be connected with other people, and oftentimes people find it very difficult to open up and share about the kind of struggles they're having. Not even to the extent of having a mental health issue. Even sometimes when they're struggling with some personal challenges, people are not keen to share with people around them. You know, family, friends. Sometimes they like to keep it to themselves.
Because again, let me ask you, why do you think that? Why do you think people keep it within themselves?
To be honest, in my opinion, I feel that it's really, yeah, there's several factors. One is some people might be embarrassed or ashamed of the kind of struggles that they are going through, so that they do not want to open up to other people. Or maybe they have this image that they would like to upkeep. For example, if let's say, in more traditional thinking, like if let's say I'm the head of the family, it's like I'm the father, you know, I have to remain strong. I have to have this image of that, you know, I can keep things together. So I wouldn't want to share my struggles with maybe my wife or even my children. Yeah.
Right, right. There's so many reasons and so many fears and so many misperceptions. But you know, we've got to overcome all of them so we can live and we can stop the tragedy of losing a human being to suicide every 40 seconds. That's one of the most lethal impacts of mental illness. But then again, there's so much misery. People living lives, like prisoners, like I used to, in their own homes, without being able to fulfill their own their own potential, having access to education and employment and a life in the community. You know, the opportunity to live and to love and to learn and to play, just like all human beings, yearn for. Just humanity, human rights and social dignity and social justice, just basic human rights like every human being deserves.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. So what are some advice, that you can give to people who might find it difficult to open up and share with other people or even reach out for help?
My own journey taught me the power of truth, of being honest, right? Because truth will set us free. No matter how traumatic, no matter how terrifying, truth will set us free. And so I asked myself, what was the turning point in my life? And it was the day that I chose, and I promised myself that from that day on, I would speak my truth. If somebody asked me, how are you? To say, I am really struggling. What's going on? I have depression. And I find it really difficult some days to just get out of bed or to just get my child ready for school. And I need help, right? Opening up to my friends and opening up to my family was the hardest thing I could do. It was easier to open up to strangers, believe it or not. I mean, you'd be standing in a grove, it's typical things, right? You go out to a party or a luncheon and it's like, oh, what do you do? What do you do? It's like, well, I'm a mental health advocate. Oh, do I need to be careful around you? It's like, no, I just advocate for mental health, right? I mean, the people have all these misperceptions, right? Are you going to analyze me now? It's like, no, I advocate for mental health. So why do you do that? Well, I have struggled with depression, and I want to create a world where people like myself can live with all of the human rights that they deserve, just an access to, like I said, to a life in the community, to a life where they can pursue their own dreams and fulfill their own potential. And so, so just conversations, right? When you have the opportunity to be able to do that, but opening up to your own family and friends is hard. But I began to do that, and it gets easier. It gets easier with time and with practice. It also gets easier once you start to believe in yourself and believe that you deserve to live a full and fulfilling, healthy, productive life. Ask yourself, say your best friend had depression and she disclosed to you or he disclosed to you that he's struggling, how would you respond? Would you be kind to them? Would you be compassionate? Would you offer them help? 99% of the time, people don't have any problem saying, of course I would. I love my friend, or I love my brother, or I love my sister. But we're so hard on ourselves. So when we talk about stigma, there's a lot of self-stigma. Because of societal stigma, the person would have internalized, somebody like me would have internalized the external stigma, societal stigma so much that we ourselves stigmatize ourselves, right? So the very first barrier to overcome is to believe in ourselves, that we are human and what we are experiencing is a human experience. It's not crazy, you're not possessed, you're not evil, you're just a human being having a human experience, and that you deserve care, that you deserve help, and that you deserve the love and compassion that human beings need to survive, right? And so that's really where it began. And the more I started education, I always look at it as 3 steps: awareness, acceptance, and action. In the beginning, I had no awareness of what mental illness was. So I had to educate myself what it was. And then I started educating my family. Then I started educating my friends. And then I started educating my community as I am now. And the acceptance that, yes, I have a mental illness and I'm a human being with a mental health condition, right? And I deserve to take action, like with any other health condition, to take care of myself, to take the best care of my health and my well-being. And so it all begins with the awareness and the education that mental health is part of overall health and well-being. I hope it helps.
It definitely did, because I mean, like you mentioned, a lot of times when people ask you, are you okay? You kind of tend to default into the answer, I'm fine. Yeah. So I think taking that step to be truthful, like you mentioned, to be open to share. Just, if you're really not doing well, it's okay to tell the other party, yeah, I'm not doing so well in the last few days. And you can go on to explain a bit more about why. And I think one of the greatest barriers, like you mentioned, of sharing to our friends, our families, or people we know, is this fear and apprehension of how they would react. Will they treat me differently from now on? Yeah. So
Fear of
to
judgment.
overcome that, yes, exactly. And to
And some
overcome
people
that is
might,
mm,
and some people might,
exactly.
right? You
People who
have
are
to be
not.
ready for that. I've learned so many lessons. That's why I always say, I used to fear that depression was a demon, and now I believe that depression is the greatest teacher I ever had, because it taught me so many lessons. One of the greatest lessons is to believe in myself, to be my own best friend, to have self-love and self-compassion at all times, and not to let anybody and anyone's words have more power over what I believe of myself, right? So yes, we're all afraid of judgment, of what the other person might say or might think, or the way they might perceive us or behave towards us. That's on them. It's not on us. As long as we can respect ourselves and be loving and kind to ourselves, I think we can overcome just about anybody else's opinion of us, which to begin with isn't true anyway. Again, to have compassion for themselves. I always remember this beautiful quote that I discovered one day. It says, 3 friends I have: one that loves me, that teaches me tenderness; one that hates me, that teaches me caution; and one that is indifferent to me, that teaches me self-reliance. And so whether you love me, hate me, or you're indifferent to me, I see you as a friend, and you're teaching me an important lesson. You're giving me a gift, no matter who you are. And so it begins and ends with self-respect and self-love and self-compassion and loving kindness toward the other person too.
Wow,
Tell them
that
that.
is a beautiful quote.
Yeah, it's helped me throughout my life because, honestly, like you say, we're all human and we can say and do things to demean each other, to disrespect each other, to hurt each other. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not. But nonetheless, it's so easy for us to lose faith in ourselves. And right now, through the pandemic, this is a hard time for all of us. And all of my work through ASHA International was in person in the community. And I'm totally cut off from it right now. And it's taking a huge toll on me. For example, I am not a social media gal, just not there. Okay. I love human interaction, face-to-face interaction. And that's, the heart and soul of what we do through ASHA International. But now by force, I need to learn how to be engaged with people, because that's at the heart of it all. It's my need to be of service, my need to give hope to people that are struggling. And now more than ever, a lot of us are struggling with our mental health and physical health and social health and financial health and health period. And so it's born out of my own need to want to be of service, to want to be of hope to people in need. But now I can't get out in the community and do that anymore. So I need to learn how to do it through the power of technology and social media. And it is very difficult for me. It's a new skill. It's scary. It's very unnatural. And in fact, just an hour and a half ago, I was just at a point, because we are getting ready to do our very first Facebook live stream event tomorrow on Friday here in the US. And I learning about StreamYard and this and that and everything else. My head was just exploding. It's like, oh my God, I can't do this. I said, okay, stop. Just go out into the garden, take a walk. Remind yourself that you're still a worthy human being, even though you don't know what StreamYard is or what, live streaming is or whatever. Because if we give up on ourselves, we have nothing to build on. But as long as we can believe in ourselves and love ourselves and respect ourselves and ask for help when we need it, we all can have a beautiful future.
I agree with you so much. I think it's really important to love ourselves and to respect ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's really crucial in us being able to move forward and cope with things around us. So, Ms Gayathri, I actually have a question from one of our
Yes.
audience. Okay,
Yes.
so I'm just gonna read it out. Okay, so it says, "Hi Gayathri, I'm so happy that you found yourself and your meaning and purpose in life. Just a question: if you had the power to change your past, would you have picked the initial journey of becoming a doctor or not change a single thing at all?"
Not change a single thing at all.
Oh, why? Would you like to share more?
Yeah. Our journey makes us who we are destined to be. By that I mean each of us has unique gifts that we are born with, and we cultivate and we navigate. We kind of gravitate towards. And becoming a doctor is a very socially acceptable thing. There's no stigma to it. There's no shame to it. There's no dearth of doctors in this world. But there is an incredible need for people like myself, people living with a mental health condition, to stand up and share their story, to humanize a dehumanized health condition, to give hope to others who are struggling, to let them know that they're not alone, that they too can recover, much like I have, much like Ida gave me that gift of hope. There is a bigger need for people like myself, people living with mental health conditions, to give hope, to end the stigma, and to build communities of empathy and of support and inclusion where all of us can thrive. So yeah, even if I was given a chance to do it all over again, I would pick my path, because if I hadn't suffered the way I have, I would not have empathy the way I have. I wouldn't understand what it was. And without understanding, you can't have empathy. And so I am grateful. I am so grateful for every step of my journey.
I see. Thank you so much, Ms. Gayathri. And I guess in the same line of questioning, let's say if you could, meet your past self when you were at your lowest, what would you say to her?
I would tell her, darling, be brave and believe in yourself. And dare to dream your own dreams, not the dreams that other people dream for you, but dream your own dreams and go after it with all your heart. Don't ever, ever stop dreaming and believing in yourself and pursuing your own passion, your own path, because there's only one us in this world, and when we are younger, we want to be like someone that we love or admire or respect. And even as you grow older, sometimes, even now, sometimes, I am inspired by somebody else, and it happens all the time, and it's like, oh my god, I wish I was like them, I wish I was like her or like him. And then ultimately I remind myself there's only one of each of us, and each of us has a unique gift to offer to ourselves and to our world. And so this is where the daily practice of meditation and journaling has helped me ground myself on a daily basis, to remind myself to walk my walk, to pursue my dream and my service to humanity. Yeah.
I see. Thank you so much. I think that sharing, you mentioned about being brave to yourself, and of course, you did mention some coping strategies such as meditation and journaling. What other methods do you usually use to kind of cope with stresses?
Absolutely. And all of these practices that I'm going to share, now has helped me not only recover from mental illness, whether it's panic attacks or anxiety or depression and suicidal ideation, but it has also helped me build a life of resilience and well-being, because a lot of times, when we're talking about mental illness and wellness, it's like, oh, have you recovered? Are you cured? And I always say it's a journey, every day is a journey. And so, like a lot of people around the world, I used to dream, oh, I wish I could just find a pill that would make it all go away, that would make it all better. And so after almost 10 years of trying different medications and therapies and all of that, I learned the hard way that wellness does not come encapsulated in a pill. It encompasses the way we live. And so I learned, I have had many, many wonderful teachers and angels along the way that have helped me along this journey. And so what I practice now is really my wellness plan that I have practiced for the last at least 31 years. Every morning I wake up and I practice pranayama, which is deep breathing practices, deep breathing techniques that originated in India. And again, it's funny, but it's an American teacher that taught me pranayama and transcendental meditation and yoga, all practices that originated in India, but nobody in my family practiced. But here in America, I had wonderful American teachers. So I wake up and I practice my, breath work, pranayama, and then I practice transcendental meditation for about 20, 25 minutes. And then I journal every day. It's a gratitude journal. Primarily, I offer gratitude for all of the many small and wondrous gifts. And I certainly journal a whole lot these days about the heartbreak and the grief that I witness, and the suffering and the pain. And I pray and I send loving kindness to the world, hoping that I believe we all will come out of this stronger and kinder and more resilient. But on a day-to-day basis, sometimes it can weigh, all of us down. And so, I journal about what is troubling me that day and what I hope to do in terms of being the hope in the world. What is it, the one small thing that I can do today that can be the change, that can be the hope in our world. And then I work out, at least 5 times a week. I still remember, when my psychiatrist had mentioned to me that I should start exercising, that it would be very helpful. And I'm like, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Why would I need to go work out in a gym or anything? And I'm not an athlete. I'm not a jock. And he tried to convince me, that just the benefits of exercise to your overall health and well-being, not just to, balance your moods, but, your physical health, your mental health, your overall well-being. And I'm glad I took his advice seriously. And I started working out at least 5 times a week back then, and I still do. And amazing, amazing health benefits that we all know of just moving right? And then hydration and, nutrition. And I'm glad that my mother raised me. By the time I was 8 years old, she taught me how to cook. And so, cooking is such a big part of my life and my culture. And now that my husband's retired, he does a lot of the cooking as well. And I get to do more of the work and get freaked out by technology and start learning social media and all of this fun stuff. But anyway, yeah, so, nutrition is also, like they say, food is medicine and medicine is food. It's really, really important what we put into our mouths, and because the whole brain gut connection and just overall well-being, right? Food is such an important thing. And so yeah, and meaningful work, I believe literally, I don't even want to call it work, it's my calling. I wake up wanting to do what I do every single day, because there's somebody out there in the world that needs to hear that they're not alone, that we're in this together, and together we're going to get through whatever it is that they're struggling today. And so my work is very, very meaningful to me. And sleep, very, very important. Just to try to make sure that I get up at least about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And what's life without fun, without joy, right? I know we all get bogged down. I do too, with the work that we do, with life, with chores, with family, with all the responsibilities. Today was a beautiful day here in Portland, in my hometown. And so my husband and I were out in the garden, washing all the garden furniture and the cushions and all. So, just being outside, whether it is just enjoying the garden or, working in the garden, it's just taking a walk, even in these times when we can't leave the house and go places, thank God there's still so much beauty, and nature is, fortunately very healthy, more healthy, the people are not spoiling it. So, taking walks and watching movies and TV and playing word games. And both our daughters are in town, so they come and visit, and we have family dinners together, cook together. And so all of that, that's just plain common sense. Bottom line, self-care and social support, right? It's so important for all of us. And so I make it a point to make sure that I have all of that in place. And I'm human, don't get me wrong. I know what I need to do, but sometimes I don't always get to do everything right. And I fall and I get up and I learn again and I move on again. That's all any of us can do.
I see. And from your sharing, I kind of realized that, yeah, you're absolutely right that our wellness is holistic. It's not just about taking care of our mental health. We need to take care of our physical health as well, through exercising, through diet, and of course, building that connection with the people around us. And for your case, with your husband. Yeah, so I understand that, wellness is a holistic thing. And I think we have actually one question, okay, from the audience. Okay, actually, I would just like to check with you, okay. We are going to do something slightly different now. Okay, we're going to give the audience a chance to ask you questions directly by turning on their mics. Okay, so I'm going to go in order of people who actually ask me questions. Okay, so the first one is Jessie. Okay, Jessie, I'm going to unmute you now. Okay, so you can ask your question directly to Ms Gayathri. Okay. Hi, Jessie. Okay, sorry, give her a second. Yeah. Hi, Jessie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, so
hi, thank you so much. I really enjoy the sharing sessions. I'm Jessie. Yeah, I have one question for you, and that is, I fully agree with what you said about the stigma on mental wellness conditions, and I think we really need to practice the normalizing of everybody just talk about mental health issues if they have one. That comes also when you mentioned about self-care and self-compassion. And there were times that people view self-care as being selfish. So just wondering, what is your view on that? And I, for one, believe that one can't pour from an empty vessel. Like if I'm down, I can't even pull myself up to help myself. I'm going to help others. So I think it's so important to have the self-compassion and self-care. So what is your view on others people looking at, you're all selfish, just talking about yourself? Thank you.
It's a great question. Thank you for your question. It's all, there's cultural issues and then there's gender issues. So I think the culture in Singapore is a lot like culture in India. And then there's the gender issue, right? When a man takes care of himself, it's just seen as self-care. But if a woman I'll give you a practical example. If I were to get up and get my newspaper and get a cup of coffee, which I don't drink, but if I were to, and just sit and read the newspaper growing up, my mother would have told me, excuse me, what are you doing? Come help me in the kitchen, go to the market, fetch me this, fetch me that, right? Now, if my brother woke up and did that, that was okay. So from a very young age, we are socialized to believing that taking care of ourselves, whether it's reading a newspaper or getting up first thing in the morning or, meditating or journaling or exercising or whatever, would have been seen as selfish, not self-care, right? And so, again, I'm so grateful to my psychiatrist who sat me down one day and said, I need you to be selfish. And I remember looking at him going, what in the world are you trying to tell me? My mother taught me that being selfish is the worst thing a woman can do. And he said, no, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody. And I know you love your baby to the moon and back. And if you want to be healthy enough to take care of her, you need to take care of yourself first. And so that's why I need you to go to the gym, work out, get a babysitter, or leave your child with your husband, go, hang out with your friend on a weekend, start having a life for yourself where you're taking care of yourself and your goals and your dreams and your wishes as well. Don't forget on that, because that is when you become resentful and unhealthy, right? So initially it was all very, very strange to me, but now I always tell everybody self-care is the best care. There is no health care without self-care, and self-care is the best care. Whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, whether you're a child, whether you're an adult, it doesn't matter. Self-care is the best care, and it's exactly the opposite of being selfish. I hope that helps.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessie, for your question. Yeah. Okay, next question is actually from Jean. So Jean, I'm gonna unmute you now, and you can ask your question directly to Ms Gayathri. Okay?
Hi. Yeah. Earlier on, just now you mentioned about your mom's perception of mental health. Especially about that in terms of the stigma. So I was wondering, how has your journey been with sharing about your mental health experiences, and also trying to address some of that mental health stigma with your family members? Thanks.
Could you please repeat it? I could hear parts of the question.
Earlier on, you mentioned about your family members' perception of mental health, especially with your mom's some of the stigma, especially when you went to the clinic. So I was wondering, how's your journey been with trying to share your mental health experiences and also addressing this mental health stigma with your family members? Thanks.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Again, it goes back to this. Yes, my family had a lot of stigma, like all families do, and like I myself, did. But my survival depended on me educating myself and empowering myself and setting myself free. And so I had to do it, and I chose to do it, and I'm glad I did it. And along the way, I started to educate my family. And fortunately for me, they were open-minded enough. They loved me enough, open-minded enough, that they started to get educated alongside with me, right? So to a point where now, they are my biggest champions. Yeah, I mean, honestly, my mother, I can't tell you the number of times that she tells me, Gayo, I'm so grateful that God chose me to give birth to you. I am grateful that I could give birth to a child like you, right? And I can't tell you how many times my husband will tell me, I will take care of, the work at home. You do work that saves lives, so you go focus on that. And when my dad, I lost my dad almost 4 years ago, and it always breaks my heart when I think of it, but it also strengthens me. He's with me even now. He had his own struggles, and because of the stigma, because of the toxic masculinity, he could never talk about it, and he could never come to terms with it for almost up until he passed away. But just, a couple of years before he passed away is when he sat me down on his lap and said how proud he was of me, that I had the courage to do the work that I do, that he had never had the courage to even speak about. right? So, and my children, both my daughters, they're now 34, 29 almost. And, when they were kids, they were very uncomfortable having a mother like me that was so outspoken about her own mental health in the world. But now they are my biggest champions. They know, they see, they even within their own friend circle or their colleagues, they see people struggling, and they understand the value of what I do and the courage it takes to do what we all do as mental health advocates, right? So yeah, gone is the stigma, gone is the shame. Every one of us is a champion now in this family. We all want to speak out in whatever capacities that we can, but we all believe that it's time. It's time for us to share our stories, to share our truth, so we can live free and others can live free.
Thank you, Jean, for the question. Thank you, Ms Gayathri. So I think, yeah, you mentioned something that I feel is very accurate. It's the support of the family members around you, their desire to see you do well and their desire to be there for you, that kind of helps them try to understand the kind of struggles that you have been through. Yeah. So I'd just like to remind everybody, okay, if let's say you have a question that you would like to ask Ms Gayathri, okay, feel free to click the thumbs up reaction and then we can unmute you and you can ask your question directly to Ms Gayathri, okay? If not, because right now we do not have any questions, so I will move on, okay? Because I have another question for you, Ms Gayathri. Okay.
And I have a question too. Can we just make about 10 minutes time to share about the My Story, My Superpower project and the resources we have for all of you?
Yes, that is actually the next question I was about to ask you. Yeah, because you did mention about the power of stories, and you came up with ASHA International, and you did mention to me that recently there is a new movement called My Story, My Superpower. So would you like to share with us a bit more on that?
Thank you. I'm going to try this. I'm going to share my screen and share a video. Let me know if it works on your end.
Sure.
ASHA primarily taps into the power of human stories. We create social change through storytelling. We give hope through storytelling. We save lives through storytelling. Good morning. My name is Gayathri Ramprasad, and I'm the founder and president of ASHA International. And every 40 seconds, for example, there's a suicide in this world. Each morning when I wake up, it never skips my mind. But in less than the time that it takes for me to take a deep breath, we have lost a person. Like many people, I grew up in a family where we did not talk about mental health, or certainly did not understand how integral mental health is for our overall health and well-being. I truly believe that stories, empowering every person living with a mental health condition to stand up and share their stories, will lead us to a world where there will not be any stigma or shame attached to mental health conditions. But the important fact is, many of us are not getting the help, and we need to change that. And that's exactly what our storytellers are dedicated to doing. They are willing to stand up and share their truth, their struggles, and their resilience with one hope: that you, any one of you, if you ever see yourself struggling in these ways, that you will have the courage to get the help that you need. For the first 10 years of ASHA International's life, I traveled across US and India and Australia and South Africa, and I shared my story as far and as wide as I could. But there's only so much one person can do. So in 2017, we trained 20 storytellers here in Portland, Oregon, and the movement began. So with that, it's my distinct honor to introduce Natalie Robinson. She is a junior at Sunset High School, and she'll share her story.
I became involved with ASHA when a friend of mine, her older sister, my mom had told me that she was a storyteller. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want anything to do with that. But that spring, they came and presented in the health class I was in. And then I was like, I think this is something I should do. I have a clear memory of the first time I thought of taking my own life. And even though it scared me, the thought was in my mind and it felt like it would never go away. The idea that I could stop my own heart or keep myself from breathing with such a small action absolutely terrified me, but at the same time, I was obsessed with the idea of it. I was 14 years old. It was definitely very scary to share my experience with ASHA just because, it's such a personal thing. I just to think about how I am going to help people and how there's at least one person out there who this could save their life, that could save the life of someone they know. And that's just enough for me to do it.
I'm not Natalie Robinson. I'm Jackson Buell. And I'm a senior over at Glencoe High School.
Jackson's story has definitely a unique power. There are not very many young men on our storytellers team, or men of any age, very few men on our team that are willing to share their story. And it really, really highlights the fact that it's so much harder for men to talk about their mental health than it is for women.
Half of the world's population is males, and if they've all been taught that mental health doesn't exist, A, because it doesn't exist in general, and B, because we can't talk about it so we can be strong, it means that we have two barriers to break through for men before these conversations become normalized.
When I watch Jackson present and the way young men at high schools respond to his story, it cracks me up. They're just high-fiving, fist bumping each other, going, finally, there was a bro moment.
ASHA's helped my life because through sharing these stories at schools like this, it's helped me heal and come to terms with my own story.
ASHA literally means hope in Sanskrit, one of the world's most ancient languages that originated in my home country of India. And in English, it's an acronym for a source of hope for all. And that's exactly what we do. We give hope.
When we work together, even the smallest actions can make the biggest differences in changing how society views mental health. Thank you for letting me share my story.
So yeah, I truly believe that every one of us has a story, and our story is our superpower. Every time a person shares their mental health story, we end the stigma and shame surrounding mental illness. Every time a person shares their mental health story, they create a safe environment where people can share their struggles and seek help. And every time we share our mental health story, we help build a community of empathy and support where all of us can thrive. So I welcome everybody in Singapore to join us in this movement. I'm just gonna walk you down the pages. Again, I would like for you all to come visit the pages on your own. It's very simply set up in a very, very, very simple format. There are 3 ways that anybody anywhere in the world can join the movement. One of them is to first of all, get hope. Right? If you're somebody that's struggling, that's why we exist. Just see the stories, explore the stories of courage, hope, and resilience. And I'll walk you there in just a second. So on this page, you will see that we have organized over 150 stories of courage, hope, and resilience to let you know that no matter who you are, no matter what you're struggling with, you're not alone. There is hope. We're all in this together, and we can offer each other hope and support. And so all of this 150 plus stories are organized by diagnosis, by age group, whether you're an adult or a child or a youth or a parent, and then by country. And we would love to see stories from Singapore up on this page really soon. And I say that with the greatest sincerity, because when somebody somewhere, say somebody like myself in the US is sharing her story, sure, I hope it can give you hope. And I hope it can inspire you on your own road to recovery. But what really, really inspires people within your community is your story. People within their own community, right? So representation is very, very, very important. And which is why, give me just a second, we don't want the video again. I welcome everybody in Singapore. I am gonna try to get back to the page to show you how you can submit your own story. Okay, this is where technology is saying bye-bye to me. Okay, now we go down again. All right. Yes. So the second way that people can join our story, and this is a really, really important way that people can join the movement, is to share their own story, to inspire hope in others, and to ignite the social change that we're all talking about, to end stigma once and for all, right? And so there's all of the clarity and the simple steps that you need to submit your own story, whether it is as a video or as a blog post or a poem or a piece of music or poetry. You can simply post it to YouTube, send the link to us, or just, if it's just a blog post, you can actually just attach it right here in this form on the page. And we would love to see some stories from Singapore, and we'll be so happy to add it to our collection of stories and share it on our social media platforms as well, as I'm learning, but we're also hiring a social media expert pretty soon here. And there's one last way that people can join the movement, and that is to help amplify the movement itself. And I'm going to take you there in just a moment. So the My Story, My Superpower movement is a global movement to empower people living with mental health conditions around the world to stand up and share their story, to end stigma and to give hope and to promote health and well-being. But there are so many other programs that we present here at ASHA International, like the, Let's Talk About Mental Health program in schools and in workplaces and in community organizations. I know, I would have said in the past, oh, but these are all local programs, but these are programs that can be, now that we live in a world without walls and we use technology to get anywhere and everywhere we want, these are programs that we can help present even in Singapore, right? And we would love to help you get these programs off the ground. Like you saw in the video, what we do is to train people living with mental health conditions to become storytellers and champions of change, to become storytellers and advocate for whatever the change that they want to see in their own community. And so we'd be happy to share, all of the resources we have and train mentor storytellers in Singapore as well. So there are many, many ways that you can help us amplify the movement. And the simplest of all is to just sign up for our newsletter and become part of our community. That way you can stay in touch and know, where we are and what we are, doing out in the community, and request any of the programs that you might be interested in your own community. I just wanted to also quickly mention that we have a lot of resources, health and wellness resources, under the resources tab on our website. We have health and wellness articles written by people living with mental health conditions. And the ASHA blog is really a blog about our events, upcoming events, and other important milestones in the organization's life. Stories of Hope, as I walked you through, that's a collection of 150 stories there. And additional support is all of the organizations that can be of help. And store, we have some books, including my own memoir, Shadows in the Sun, there as well. But I'm going to just end with this one quick note about the health and wellness articles, because I just want to give you an example. So, this is Diane Kaufman that you see. She's a child and adolescent psychiatrist who's in her late 60s. And only a couple of years ago, she was in one of our events and was inspired enough by hearing the story of one of our youth storytellers that she chose to share her own story, not as a psychiatrist, but as a psychiatrist living with bipolar disorder, who's also a suicide survivor, right? So these are the kind of people that are on our storytellers team that are advocating for change, whether it's in the healthcare industry or in the general community. Hoda Abwaish, she's a high school student. She's a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, self-harm, depression, suicide attempts. But here's the story. She's also an incredible student body leader and a mental health advocate, and phenomenally strong human being, and a resilient, joyful human being. And she wrote a blog post about 3 tips of how she is navigating the pandemic now. And this young man here, Eric, he is a LGBTQ youth going off to Stanford this fall. Just brilliant human beings. And this is what I want to end my, at least my thoughts with. People living with mental health conditions are people, human beings with incredible potential, and they deserve the love and the support and the connectedness that we all aspire for. So thank you. It's such a joy to be with all of you. I hope all of these resources can give you hope and offer you help, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, definitely in Singapore. And I do invite you to join us in the My Story, My Superpower movement.
Thank you, Ms. Gayathri. For those who are interested to check out Ms. Gayathri's movement, I've actually posted the link inside the group chat. Okay, so you can go there and check out, her movement. You can read up on here or listen to some of the stories because some of them are in video format as well. So yeah, please feel free to head over there. Okay, so Ms. Gayathri, thank you so much for sharing with us about ASHA International as well as the My Story, My Superpower movement. So Ms. Gayathri, just like you did mention that, because during this period of time, right, I understand that you live in Portland, USA, which is also one of the countries with a very, very high amount of COVID-19 cases. So can I just ask, how are you and your family coping over there?
Thank you so much. My family and I am really, really grateful to share that we've all been healthy. We live in the same city, our children and us, so we get to see them frequently. And so that's been such a gift and such a healing to be able to be with each other during these difficult times. But as you might have heard in the news, it's a very sad day in the history of the United States. We lost 100,000 people and more, but we reached that very somber milestone, if you want to call that, of losing 100,000 US citizens to this virus. And it's heartbreaking, to say the least. As a human being, though, every time my heart breaks, my resolve is strengthened. Because the only way we're going to overcome all of this is together. No matter who we are, to come together with love, with compassion, support each other, and believe, have hope, hold on to hope that no matter how dark today might seem, tomorrow is another day, and there will be light, even amidst the darkness.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gayathri. And I think you're right that everybody has a role to play during this pandemic period, and we have to work together as a community, as a society to move on stronger than before. Yeah. So actually, I also have one more question. Is that because I understand that sometimes when people are struggling with mental health issues, they use outdoor activities as a form to de-stress and relax. And I understand during this COVID-19 period, during this pandemic, it is challenging to do that because we're all encouraged to stay at home as much as possible. So instead of doing things outdoors, what would you recommend other people do as a form to kind of de-stress?
Here's the thing, right? I don't know what it is in Singapore. You can educate me. We here in the US, we are allowed to be outdoors, meaning, some of the parks are open, not all, but certainly, just to go out for a walk in your own neighborhood, you're perfectly fine doing that. Some of the parks are open, but people are highly encouraged to maintain social distance and wear masks if you're getting close, in close proximity to other people. So, but definitely, our lives are limited. It's turned, upside down. So here's the thing, work out at home. There's so many, organizations that are providing free resources, whether it is, meditation, classes or yoga classes or other forms of exercise classes. Just look online. So many companies are going out of their way to provide all these resources at no cost. So for example, I am the birthplace of Nike. I live about 10 minutes away from Nike. Both my daughters work for Nike. But that apart, Nike is a giant, as we all know, a global giant when it comes to sports and athletics and all of that. They have, it's called Nike Training Circuit, NTC. If you were to Google NTC, you'll come up with an app, and they have hundreds and hundreds of workouts for free. No matter who you are, no matter where you are in the world. There are lots and lots of meditation apps, lots of sleep apps, right? Free apps trying to help people to, de-stress before they go to bed. There's so many free resources available right now online that there is no need for us to give up. It just takes reminding ourselves, going and looking for these resources and creating that routine of self-care. Making self-care the priority every day. we should have even before the virus. And this is where, you know, I'm grateful that because I started struggling so young and I had to learn the lessons so young, that those lessons stand in very good standing right now. You know, the self-care part of it was in place. Is it hard? Some days, definitely. But I don't, you know, fudge on that. It's not negotiable. I get up, I do my breath work, I do my meditation, I do my exercise, my journaling, and all of that. So when I do, I feel so much better. And there's no reason any of us can't do the same things, because even exercise, like you said, yes, we may not be able to be outdoors, but we can still move our body indoors. It may not be the same. Maybe watch some travel channel, you know, read a book. There are more ways to travel in our mind when our bodies can't travel.
I see. Thank you so much. And just to update you a little on Singapore's situation, it's quite similar to US, as you mentioned. And we are allowed to leave our house. We are not like forbidden by law to leave our house. We are allowed to go down to get groceries, to maybe pack food back to our own house. Yeah, so we are allowed to do that. Of course, we have to wear masks while we leave our house. So as you mentioned, some parks are opened as well. Yeah, but I think generally people are still a little anxious regarding that, because some people, they exercise without wearing masks while they run. So some people could be a bit worried about that situation. Yeah, just to update you a little on how Singapore is like, because we have been, you know, we are under this measure called the circuit breaker measure. So we were actually told to stay at home for 2 months, and we are coming to the end of it actually. Yeah. So the start of June will mark the end of the circuit breaker
We're
period.
all going to celebrate, won't we?
Yes, we are.
We made it.
Yes. Yeah, so thank you so much for your sharing, Ms Gayathri. One last call to the audience. If let's say you all have any questions for Ms Gayathri, feel free to, you know, leave a reaction, a thumbs up, or anything. We can actually unmute you so you can ask your question directly to Ms Gayathri. Okay, anybody? No? Okay. Then thank you so much, Ms. Gayathri, for really spending so much time with us tonight. I can see from your window in your background that it was bright before we started and now it's dark. So thank you so much for your time today. And thank you really once again for coming here to share with us your story and as well as your movement. So before we end, okay, Ms. Gayathri, I would like to ask you, what is the take-home message that you would like all of us to, you know, learn from this session today?
It's the same mantra that I remind myself, right? Love greatly. Let me start again. Dare greatly, love deeply, and share your light. So I'll say it one more time very slowly. Dare greatly, love deeply, and share your light.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gayathri. And thank you once again for, you know, spending your evening with us here today. And I'm sure all of our audience have learned so much from you. So thank you all to all the audience again for taking time to join us this afternoon. And of course, Silver Ribbon will continue to put out more exciting events for you and publicize them on our Facebook page, Silver Ribbon Singapore's Facebook page. So feel free to go over there and join our Facebook page to stay updated on more events such as this. So, my technical support, Ryan, actually has some slides to share. Okay, give me a second. Okay, thank you so much, Ryan. Okay, so just to update everyone, okay, currently Silver Ribbon Singapore is providing complimentary online emotional support via phone call, via Zoom meeting, or if let's say even WhatsApp call if required. So these are the 3 numbers that you can give us a call to fix an appointment if you would like to, you know, speak with a counselor. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and tomorrow we are having another event called the Final Countdown to celebrate the end of our circuit breaker period. Okay, so I would really hope to see each and every one of you there tomorrow evening. Okay, and we have a lot of exciting performance lined up for you. If you have followed our Facebook page or Instagram, you will have seen snippets of the performance that you can enjoy tomorrow evening. So I hope to see each and every one of you there. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and of course, if you would like to donate to Silver Ribbon Singapore to support our cause to promote positivity towards mental health, you can donate via the QR code you see on screen now, or you can visit our website at www.silverribbonsingapore.com. Okay, you can drop us an email with your personal particulars if you would like a tax deductible receipt as well. Okay, next slide, please. So before we end, I would like to invite everyone to take some time to give us feedback on how this event was like for you and where we can improve as we are starting to explore, online platforms to conduct our events to reach out to the community. So you can either scan the QR code you see on screen, or you can refer to the chat group where Ryan has actually posted a link that links you directly to our feedback form. So please give us your honest feedback and let us know where we can improve on this event. And we hope to be able to come up with more exciting events to engage the community. Yeah, so once again, special thanks to Ms Gayathri for joining us your evening and our afternoon, and really for sharing so much. And your story really inspires strength and hope in many of us here today. So thank you again.
You're most welcome. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone. Okay, please take care, and I really hope to see all of you tomorrow at our final countdown. Thank you.
Lots of love to you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.